Hi everyone, and welcome to this edition of the Desteni I Process live Google Hangout. We do Hangouts here from the Desteni I Process YouTube channel and Google Plus channel, and we are continuing with our series on practical self-empowerment. So we've basically, for a couple of months now, we've been walking this really awesome series where every week we invite someone to come and share a point of practical self-empowerment that they have walked in their own process, where they're changing something in their life, something that they've been struggling with or that has been bothering them, and that they're then standing up from, and they're coming here to share that process so that anyone else who may be facing the same or a similar point can learn from them and learn some tools to also assist and support yourself to practically empower yourself. In this week's Hangout, we are talking to Cerise. Hi, Cerise.
Hi.
And we're talking about the point of walking from being a couch potato, which is basically like someone that just want to lie on the couch and watch TV, I suppose. Maybe there are different kinds of couch potatoes, or like being a lazy teen, like that kind of personality where you don't really want to do anything, you're indifferent, you're apathic, to standing up and becoming someone that is making an active difference in the world. So how do you do that? As always, we welcome you to participate with any comments that you have about this topic, or if you do have any questions for Cerise during the Hangout, you can do that from our Google Plus page, where you have to log in with your Google account, and that will take you to the question and answers page. And we will feature your questions and comments live here on the Hangout. So Cerise, do you want to start by sharing a little bit so we have a point of reference? How were you a couch potato, or how were you living this kind of indifferent, lazy teen life earlier in your life?
Okay, well, when I was a teen, I suppose you could say, in a lot of ways, very typical in that the most important thing in life for me was doing the things that I liked and doing the things that I wanted to do. And it's not like I didn't care about the world. I just wanted to do my personal things a little bit more than putting in the time and effort to really get to know what's going on. So I spent a lot of time, like when I was finishing up high school, I did a correspondence. Everything I left to the last minute. I spent most of my days sleeping late, waking up late, sleeping for a long time, and as much time as possible I'd be going out with friends or having friends come over and basically just entertaining myself with doing whatever it is that I felt like doing. And sure, do you want me to start with where that point started changing, or do you want to?
Well, maybe let's just give a little bit more reference or discuss this point a little bit more. I wanted to ask you, why do you see it is that this is such a, like, it's a stereotype, the lazy teen? Like, what is it about being a teenager that has this effect, that it's like you go from being a, most children are very active and very, you could say, spirited and lively, and then at some point, for some people, of course it doesn't happen to everyone, but there's this kind of drop. And I could imagine also for a lot of parents that you become frustrated and you don't understand what's happening. So do you want to share a little bit more about the psychology of that aspect?
Sure. Well, a lot of it does have to do with basically the physical development that we go through in those formative years. There are a lot of hormones going around, and as we have all experienced, the forces that drive us in those teenage years are very powerful, and very often drive us to not think about what we're doing very much and just kind of act on impulse. And the why of that is there's no straight cut answer to that, because everyone does lead different lives in terms of the different experiences that everyone has, and some teenagers don't go through that phase of selfishness or of laziness or of indifference in one kind of if they've had one sort of upbringing compared to others who do. So as with a lot of things to do with the human mind, it does depend on a number of contributory factors. So not only environment, but also the inner development of a person, because there are those teens who really do care and who are really driven to make a change in the world. So it would be an unfair generalization to say that all teens are like that. But yes, as always, environment and the people in your environment do have a big impact on how you develop. So with many people, how they develop as teenagers will, to a large degree, be influenced by the people in their lives, especially parents, and especially the relationship between parent and child, where most of those relationships are not based on open communication. They're based on emotional reactions and demanding kind of conflictual events. So these are some of the aspects that can and often do form a part of the development of a teen into that particular experience.
Yeah, I remember also that I've read, I think it might have been like a hormone or something to do with the hormonal balance or imbalance that teens experience, that research has shown that this point with sleeping late or being up late is actually also biologically conditioned. And I read that some scientists were suggesting that because this is like this point with wanting to stay up late and sleep late is something that a lot of teenagers experience, that actually schools or their daily lives should be more structured according to it. So it's kind of interesting that if that is really the case, that you go through so strong biological hormonal experiences that it completely changes you for a moment in a way, that we expect them, they still have to get up and go to school at 8 o'clock, for example, and expect them to be able to sit and learn math or whatever. But yeah, that was kind of more of a side note. But what I've also seen and maybe also experienced for myself as being one of the reasons, but this is maybe more with indifference and apathy, is that it's also a form of resignation, where like that's kind of the timeline that I've seen, is that you have this lively child that wants to be a part of life, and then the way that our school systems are set up, the way that your relationship with your parents often is, it's very much like a prison in many ways, or like an like an indoctrination camp. And so this spirit or this liveliness, it's kind of broken down. And as a teacher, I've seen this a lot. And the older the kids get, the more like cynical they become, the more they don't care, the more and it's kind of also like a mechanism to keep themselves safe from the influence of the adults, which is like completely overarching everything in their lives. So I've also seen this point of like resignating, in thinking that, well, everything is meaningless. I don't have control over my own life. Everyone else is deciding who I should be, what I should wear. So why should I care? I find that to be quite interesting as well. But that is more like of a mental, you could say it's not necessary. Like that's certainly not biological. That's more a product of our society. Have you seen anything in relation to this point?
Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, if you take an example that everyone will be familiar with, but what we see in movies and in TV series, how the dynamics of relationships between parents and children, it is a very one-sided relationship where the parent is enforcing things on the child, and the child has no rights, the child has no voice, and they're expected to just conform and fit into whatever structure the parents are putting on them. And if ever there was a recipe for
disaster,
for disaster, it's teenage hormones and that particular setup. So absolutely agree with you that is a very serious issue in our society. That let's put it this way: children are not considered to be equals. Children are considered to be things that must be put in a specific place. So definitely something that needs to change.
So I know that you started changing and standing up from this when you were quite young. But before we get to this, I just wanted to also talk a little bit about how a lot of people can probably relate to that, this, indifferent, apathic, like we have an expression in Swedish, I can't translate it to English, but it's kind of like, I have a cat attacking me. It's kind of like the experience, like I don't have the energy to do anything. Like I just want to sit here and watch TV. That carries on into adulthood, or into, for many people, into their 20s, or even into their 30s and 40s, and for some even, for their whole life. So what have you seen in relation to this, and how it can become like almost like a lifestyle, this couch potato lifestyle of existing in this state of indifference and apathy?
I know that this is a generalization, but this seems to be quite common in the more first world countries, in the richer countries, where children are being looked after and, let's call it, coddled by their parents, where they have a safe home. They don't need to do anything to survive. They can basically, they get everything they want, they get everything they need, and all they have to do is exist. And interesting how this this environment and this let's call it the setup has that result, as opposed to the result of someone taking that opportunity to really start, exploring what else there is to life. So it's this kind of, let's call it a negative extreme of, instead of seeing the gift within the life that they have been given, it becomes an excuse almost. Although that is not all that it is. And like I said, I know I'm generalizing, and not everyone is like this. Not all cases are like this. But if we are not challenged to explore ourselves and explore the world at all, then there's that interest kind of doesn't develop in people. You're getting attacked by a cat.
No, that was a pencil.
So it's hard to discuss this point as a generalization, because there are so many influencing factors that will come out in individual lives. So definitely parental influence is one of them, and the upbringing is one of them, where someone doesn't learn how to really get out there and start pushing to do things and start creating, because they've never had to create. They don't know how to do it. Telling someone what discipline is and how to be disciplined, if they've never experienced it, or never had to experience it, you can't expect them to very easily see and know exactly what it means in living application. So there's that kind of disconnect between the perceptual reality of a comfortable, safe space and the real reality of, if you want to do anything in this life, you have to actually actively create it and move it. So also, one aspect that does come up in a few people who experience this is this, like you said earlier, that point of resignation, in that they see how the world is and they see that it shouldn't be this way, but because they do not feel empowered to be able to do anything to change it, they simply give up and say, well, what's the point? And this is actually really common. This not knowing how to do anything to change the world creates this experience of disempowerment, of being useless, of not having control. And I'd say that this is one of the main issues that we as a society need to overcome, because this is probably the primary reason that there is no real large-scale change happening in the state of the world, because people simply do not have the vision of how to practically change things, because it's all so big. The problems are so big, the issues are so big, everything is so interconnected, it's so hard, and I'm just one person, what am I going to do? I don't know what to do. That experience is very, it's, you feel powerless, you know, and that powerlessness very often just leads to that point of giving up.
Yeah, and also what you were saying before, it reminded me of how what tends to also happen here. I can say that from my own experience, also with working with children and seeing other people growing up, is that throughout the child's life, the parents will place them in a very passive position. So the child is always just following along, not being given an active role or participating. And this is especially in countries where, you know, both parents are working and everything is always very hectic and very busy. And so there's not really any time, you know, to, for example, cook with your child, which would be an activity where you learn how to cook and you learn to create an active relationship with food and with resources. And so, you know, for your entire childhood, for a lot of people, it has been very passive. Like you've been a passive receiver and also not allowed to actively engage and participate. And then at the ripe age of whatever arbitrary number, like let's say 18 or 21, then it's like, now you have to suddenly magically, just because this day came and this number changed, now you're supposed to be able to do all of this. You're supposed to be active. You're supposed to be innovative and responsible, and you know. But for your entire life, you've been in a state of passivity and being pacified as well. So that's quite interesting. And then I was also looking at, but let's get into the point with how you then started changing it. But I was also looking at this character of the couch potato. And I would say that the couch potato character is very much related to watching TV. Or now for a lot of people, it would be, you know, browsing their computer and watching YouTube videos. But it's kind of the same thing. And I was like that for many years. And so I see also a connection between the apathy and the meaninglessness and the passivity, and then why you then want to watch TV and have, you know, because it's the exact same. You can remain passive and activity comes to you. So it's like being the receiver. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but otherwise I'd like you to start sharing how you then started changing it.
Well, on one hand, I was slowly given more responsibility
Yeah.
So I was given things to do, things that had an effect, things that mattered, so that I could actually start seeing the results. Like, this is something that I created, this is something that I participated in. I can see my creation here in front of me. I walked specific steps to get to this point. So that was one aspect. Another aspect is that my lifestyle changed drastically, which is not a lot of people can do something like this. So I'm not going to focus on this point too much, but basically I went from living in the suburbs to living on a farm, where I now had to be responsible for caring for animals that had to be fed at specific times. And I had to go and work outside, and there were tasks that need to be done. There was maintenance that needed to be done. So that was also a contributory factor. There were things that depended on me in order to either survive, which was the animals. If I didn't feed them, they would not live. So I actually had to do it because no one else would do it. And the point of maintenance, in order to create the space and the environment that I wanted, I had to participate in actually creating it, in actually putting in the work and the time to create that space, to take out the trees that were a problem, the invasive species, to remove weeds, to trim things, to put up fences, to treat the wood on the fences. So that was also definitely something that was a part of my change, from being relatively passive to active.
Do you remember, do you have like an aha moment, or do you remember any like significant moment where you realized this point, like where you were kind of like you wanted to slip back into passivity, and then you realized, okay, no, I can't do this. I have to stand up.
No, there was no big moment, but there were a lot of little moments. So, for example, there would be something that I had committed to doing. And in every choice that you make to do something, you are then faced with the choice of either doing it or not doing it. And every single task, I was faced with that choice. And there were moments where I said, you know what, I could just not do this right now and do something else instead, like watch a movie or have a nap or whatever. So it's not like that thought went away. It still keeps coming up, but it gets easier to make the choice to honor your commitment and to do what needs to be done, because the more you start seeing how your actions have created your life, the more you understand the effect that you have, and the more you can see that. And within that, inherently, you will understand the effect of you not doing something will be negative consequences, will be some kind of point that you will have to face for not doing whatever it is that you committed to.
That's very interesting, actually. I've been working with this exact same point, and I've seen this seen this point as a teacher in struggling with motivating the students that I have that are teenagers. And one thing that I did see was exactly what you're talking about, is to somehow come up with tasks or assignments or projects where they can do something that matters. And I mean, in this society and with the way that schools are set up, it's very difficult. And like you said, you had a unique opportunity to change your living environment, and then that kind of catapulted that change. Like, you had to change basically if you were gonna have these animals. But what tools or suggestions do you have for someone that is, you know, lying on the couch watching this basically and seeing, yes, I resonate with this character that you guys are describing, and I don't know how to get out of the couch. I don't know, you know, maybe I've been living here for many years, or it's been like this, you know, I don't even remember how long. So what tools would you suggest for someone in that position to start applying for themselves, to empower themselves?
Well, you know, when you're about to jump into the pool and you know it's going to be really cold water.
Yes. Or the
there's
lake.
that moment. Yeah. There's that moment that you look at the water and you know that you could walk away if you wanted to. You don't have to jump in. But you close your eyes, you take a breath, and you dive bomb in there.
Yeah.
It's basically the same thing. You actually almost have to force yourself to get up and do what it is that you need to do or what you want to do. But very often the point that can really be the significant change for someone is feeling empowered or having a goal to go towards, because there's so many people who are stuck with this point of, I don't know what to do with myself. I don't know where I want to go. I don't know what I can do to change myself or the world or whatever it is. So something as simple as developing a place for you to go towards can have a huge effect, because that in itself becomes the motivation. And within that, it's very important to not just have this big goal out there in front of you. You need to be able to look at it in a practical manner and see what actual steps you need to take to get there. Because it's not one big leap to get to this magical end result. It's many little steps. And what's important to remember within this is that you're gonna make mistakes, and there will be moments, especially in the beginning, where you're gonna fall or you're gonna fail and things are gonna go wrong, and you're gonna just say, to hell with it, I'm not gonna do this. Those moments are gonna happen. I mean, it is part of our design. So it's really important to be able to take that deep breath in and breathe it out and wait for that moment to pass and then continue along your path, because it will pass just like any other experience. It's momentary. It's not permanent, unless you actively hold on to it, which is what a lot of people do. You know, they'll have this one thought that comes up, I'm a failure. But instead of taking that thought, letting it go, they keep bringing it up, and they keep putting it, going round and round like a bicycle. It just goes over and over and over and over, and it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. If you hold on to a thought in that manner, it is going to consume you. You will eventually believe it. So it is very important to learn how to let things go, to learn how to forgive yourself for making mistakes and learn from your mistakes, and then carry on going forward, because everyone makes mistakes. I mean, there's no way to not make mistakes, unfortunately, at this point in time. Maybe in the future, who knows? But right now, it's going to happen. You just got to deal with it.
Yeah, in relation to your analogy with jumping in the water, I actually, because I've been going in the lake here by where I live, and the water has been really cold this summer. And something that I realized as I was doing it, I was going in the water every day. And the first time, it took me like 10 minutes before I even, you know, touched the water. And I would like walk around and put my toes in, and oh, it's too cold, and then I finally went in, and it was really difficult. Like I really had to push myself. But then the next day, it took me 5 minutes. And then the day after that, my partner came with me, and I just jumped straight in the water. And he hadn't been in for quite some days. So he was standing there, oh, it's cold, And so we talked about how, that doing something consistently and getting over it consistently, like you said, it does get easier. And then even such a small thing as this example of making that push to go on the lake can actually assist you in bigger areas in your life. Let's say go out looking for a job, deciding to sign up for college, writing a blog. So that something that I found being very supportive is to use, like, you have to start from where you're able to. So if you're lying there on the couch and you have all these visions about changing the world or doing something great with your life, but there's very, very far from where you are realistically there on the couch to that point, then trying to make like a quantum leap, it's often not going to work. And so you have to start with whatever it is that you're capable of right now. And that might be something that seems insignificant, like, well, I'm capable of picking my clothes up from the floor and putting it in the cabinet or in the closet. And I commit myself to do this every day as a form of self-support, so that, I take care of my clothes, and thereby I take care of myself. And that is then like a small act, but yet it is an act of self-care and of consideration of yourself that you can then, start building on and start applying in other, more difficult or more larger contexts of your life. So that's something that I found supportive as well. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Did you want to say something else?
No, I was just going to say that is absolutely correct.
Okay. So let's hear before we finish for today. And I will just remind our viewers that we still have questions and comments available if you do want to ask a question or place a comment. Maybe you want to share your perspective on how you have experienced this point in your life. But Cerise, I wanted to talk to you about the aspect of now you've walked from being the couch potato, the lazy teen, you start standing up and taking responsibility for your living environment. So from there, do you want to share some more about how you then started working with the point of becoming a life changer or a world changer? Because you're already a life changer in your own life, but you then started also working with actually making a difference in the world and in other people's lives.
Well, a lot of that had to do with the principles that I have chosen to live by. And those principles are basically to do what is best for all life. Within committing myself to that principle, every single thing that I do, I have that goal in mind. I ask myself the question, how does this benefit the big picture? What can I do to benefit the bigger picture? How can I make that change? The human tendency is to be quite biased towards ourselves personally, in doing things that whatever it is that we're doing. So I have basically, I challenge myself a lot in everything that I do. I question, okay, am I doing this for me? Or am I doing this for the bigger picture? Every thought that comes up, okay, what's going on here? What's behind this thought? Is this acceptable? Is this not acceptable? Is this standing by the principles that I've chosen to live by? It's something that definitely needed practice, and I mean, I still practice it. I don't think that there's anything in life that anyone can ever perfect 100%. You know, everything. We keep practicing, we keep getting better, we keep learning more. There's always more to learn, there's always more to do, and ways to become even more effective. So standing by a set of principles is it's definitely something that you get better with the more you do it. Just like jumping into the pool gets a little bit easier every day. You know, if I compare myself 5 years ago to now, there were certain things that I found quite difficult to be not selfish about, whereas now I wouldn't accept myself to be selfish within that, because it doesn't honor that principle that I have chosen to live by. Yeah, that's basically it.
And then also to add to this, I'll just cover this cat butt. So sorry. So yeah, I just wanted to add that, you know, it's then to not now go into, you know, I'm gonna save the world, and like now I'm gonna do everything for the bigger picture, because I have personally, I have walked into this myself, sorry, and like kind of, you know, started sacrificing myself for some grand idea of, you know, now I'm gonna save the world. And so I just wanted to also share in that context something that Bernard Pullman once said to me, which was, he said, when you are best for you, you are best for all. So it is also to, you know, when you look at what is best for all life, just remember that you yourself is a part of that. So it doesn't exclude you that you should now, you know, not eat anything and go feed the homeless or something, you know, that life has to also be best for yourself. And then also with this point of, you know, now I'm going to go and save the world. And a lot of us think that then means becoming like a Jesus figure, or, you know, that you personally are going to go and save everything. And then that's a point where this apathy can actually trigger again, like you said earlier, because then you look at how massive everything is and how big it is, and how am I ever going to do that? How am I ever going to change everything? And with that, I would say it's a point of being humbled in looking at, you know, how can I contribute with my skills and my natural expression and abilities, which might at first, or, you know, it might be something like very local in your own environment, or in your own, even just starting in your own house, like you with Cerise, like you did with, you know, taking care of animals. So sometimes I find that we tend to dismiss the skills, and we don't even see what is available within us, because we think that, you know, participating in making a difference must be something grand, and, you know, that it really makes an immediate big impact. You know, I have to go into politics, but it's not necessarily there that you can make a big difference. And it is also a step-by-step process, also, as because you're still, you know, learning and growing, like as you said. So is that something that you can relate to as well?
Sure. I mean, we've all kind of been developed to have these very big superhero complexes where we think we can save the world. You know, we live in these big fantasies in our heads of how we're going to do this and that, and we're going to be these amazing people, and everyone's going to love us, and we're going to be so great. It's not very effective planning, or an effective way to think or look at situations, because it's not practical, it's not realistic. Everything that you do, if you are not taking into consideration whether it's a practical or realistic option, you're probably going to end up in a situation where you're not getting what it is that you set out to get. And that will take you back to the point of wanting to give up again because you keep failing. But you're setting yourself up to fail because your vision is unrealistic. And like you said, Anna, I mean, every person has their individual skill set, their individual talents and strengths, their natural strengths, and it's definitely easier to develop those natural skills within someone compared to developing something that is not natural. So if you are thinking that you need to become something like a politician or like, let's give an arbitrary example of like an actor, but you don't have the skills to do what it takes to be those things, you're just going to set yourself up for failure. I mean, look at what is practical, look at what you have available, and look at how you can best use what's available to you to create, even if it is a small difference. Because, I mean, we're a world of over 7 billion people. The goal that we need to work towards collectively is to make collective changes, is for each person to start living change in their lives. And being an example in a community can have a greater effect than many people give credit for. Becoming someone who has integrity, who is honest, who is a hard worker, who is sharing and who cares about people, who cares about animals, these things alone can have a huge impact on the people around you.
Yes, I agree. Okay, so my cat is saying that we have to finish this hangout now, and we need to go and have some food. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
I can't think of anything, no.
Yeah, so I would just say that if anyone is watching this and experiencing, we got a comment from Ali, a guy called Ali, a little while ago, but it wasn't related to the hangout. He wanted to learn English. So if you want to learn English, or if you want to learn more about this, I suggest to investigate. If you do have some skill that you haven't developed, and then you're like, maybe I could do something with this. Because I think I really liked what you said, Cerise, about how you have to feel empowered, and you have to see in creation, in physical, before your eyes, that your life matters, that who you are and what you're capable of, that it matters. And it might not be immediately able to be seen right now. So that's why, there's some legwork to do and investigate. How can you contribute? How can you be of benefit or be of service, and also to yourself? So if you want to talk more with us about this, put a comment here on the YouTube video, and join us on Facebook. We're very active on Facebook, so please send us a friend request or write us a message on the DIP Lite Facebook page, where we also list the times and the schedule for all of these hangouts that we do. And I also just want to recommend that in the recorded version of this live session, in the YouTube video, in the description, you'll be able to see a link to the playlist of all the past hangouts we've done in these series. So there are some amazing ones, amazing sharing and stories about how you can practically empower yourself in all areas of your life. Cerise, thank you so much for being here. Tomorrow we have a Desteni movie night hangout, and I believe it is the Phantom of the Opera, if I'm not mistaken. It is definitely a musical. It might be a different musical, so just hang tight and watch tomorrow and follow and see what happens. Okay, bye guys, see you next week.